how our parents relate to us, and it's not only the parents, it's also the greater environment in our formative years, define to a large degree how we relate to ourselves. In many cases, in most cases, the issue of low self-esteem, that's where it originated. Being dismissed, being not accounted for, and it has very, very diverse set of circumstances that can get you there. It doesn't need to be necessarily dismissal. It can be, for instance, very rigid parenting that forces a child to follow a certain template and not accept that the child has different needs or different desires or a different makeup of the personality that wants to be expressed, not how the family or the society is accepted or can accept it. Right? For instance, in very orthodox religions, doesn't matter what the religion is, they have a certain structure. This is how you need to be, right? And not that way or that way. So then it immediately causes all kinds of self-esteem issues, right? So there's many ways how you can get into low self-esteem. Once you understand what you understood today, the mechanics of it, that's the opening to start untangling it. How it came about, now you're not subject to the forces that you were as a young boy. Now you're an adult and you can define who you want to be. You have the freedom of choice. You see? In fact, majority of how you show up today is an outcome of the past. Now, that dynamics is how we live our fate. F-A-T-E. See? Fate is when we live out of the influence of our past. Yes?
Yes.
We are being propelled forward. We are being pushed forward by forces from our past. See? And I know I'm going into great details, but it's a great segue for me to explain to you some concepts. So, think of your middle school pain, being rejected by your friends. It was an outcome of earlier stage, and that's early in your life. You see? So one thing rolls into another because the events are created. It's a co-creation. You show up in a certain way, the environment responds, and back and forth. That dance happens all the time. But how you show up is a function of the forces that operate inside of you. Yes? Now those forces keep operating. So as they keep operating, they basically determine how you're going to show up in future incidents. And as long as you keep doing it, the possibilities are relatively narrow. You see?
Yeah.
So this is how you basically show up every single time as a response to forces that come from the past, from your past events. And that creates kind of a, think of it as a cone of possibilities. It's narrow cone, right? It's not very wide. It's still, there's infinite possibilities within that realm, but it's relatively narrow because every single time you show up out of the pain that you're still carrying. You see? And that's how fate is actually created on the go, on the fly, as we move forward. But it's still fate. There's a narrow field of possibilities, right? I use the idiom of a catapult. You know, when the rock is being thrown out of the catapult, there's a projected trajectory that it flies into. If it's being thrown this way, it's not going to fly this way. So that direction, and you know, today it's very easy to calculate which way it's going to go and where it's going to land. That's our fate. The whole momentum tunnel that it flies through, that's fate. See?
Yeah.
That the events that transpire through that process are all an outcome. Now, it still can be a very comfortable life. and good life. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it will by design include a lot of pain. Because the main forces that propel forward and tell or determine how you're gonna show up to conflicts, to disagreements, to different situations. Maybe there is no conflict, but because you carry pain, you create the conflict, but you don't know that. Because it's part of how you perceive the situation. See, that's fate. You understand?
Yes.
All right. Now, what you want to do is find your destiny, find your calling. And in vast majority of cases, it's not inside that momentum tunnel. Because that momentum tunnel includes a dominant component of pain that propels you forward. Right? And what is destiny? Destiny is not a place. Destiny is a state of being in which you feel expanded, you feel joyful, you feel happy. You're excited just about being alive. The fact that you're alive is exciting enough. That's destiny. See? Why? Because the component of pain is mostly gone. Understand? Because it's healed. The memories stay. You don't suppress it. But a painful memory is transmuted to just a memory. So you wake up every morning of your life just happy. There's gonna be something good. I'm excited to be alive, like a kid in a theme park. Yeah? It is achievable, it is doable, you can get there. And this process is what gets you there. You understand? But destiny is not within the momentum tunnel of fate. It's outside of it. So for you to take your life from that projected trajectory towards your destiny, there needs to be a strong force that changes the trajectory. Unfortunately, for most people, the opening of that is midlife crisis, which usually comes with a big pain. And it doesn't matter what the form of the pain can be: financial, romantic, health, work, doesn't matter. Okay? Why does midlife crisis happen? Because when this rock flies through the momentum, at some point, we venture into life and we say to ourselves, okay, it's going to be exciting. I have dreams. I have some expectations. It's going to be cool. And then 2 decades later, it's like, what the heck? You know?
Yeah.
So for some people, it's 2 decades later. So for some people, it's 4 decades later. For some people, it's 1 decade later. You're kind of there. Right? As the age of information becomes more defining to our evolution, it happens earlier because people start realizing things earlier. Right? What you realize today, a few decades ago, people realized in their 50s or 60s. So it just happens earlier. So you venture into life and you're kind of like, yeah, that's not what I signed up for. It's not working for me. I need something different. That's the crack in the door that says, midlife crisis is coming.
God.
All right? But that's a good thing. It's an opportunity. Because if you take that route, you start untangling the mental structures and the perceptual cage that causes you to go this way, to live your fate. Right? And you just had a huge example of how it's done. You understand? All right. Now, when you peel away the perceptual structures that keep causing pain in your life, you open the door for painless living.